3 or 4 cards that you probably should check out from Duskmourn.
Next on Eternal Durdles.
Extreme thank you to all the Durdlemaniacs that support the show. If you want to get ad-free content and extra free content, you can go to patreon.com/eternaldurdles and support us. The proceeds go to editing the show, upgrading equipment, and helping us travel to events. What it do? Hello and welcome to Eternal Durdles. I'm your host, Zach Clark, and with me as always, Phil Blackman. Phil, how's it going, man?
Zach, is it fair that Nadu gets to be legal, but Sensei's Top doesn't when it comes to timing of tournament logistics?
It is not fair.
It is not.
We talked about, I hate to be the doomsayer of the format. Like, I don't really want to do that, but we owe it to people to be somewhat of a zeitgeist of the format. So before we get into these Duskmourn, and I have so many cool things to say about Duskmourn, I'm very excited for this set. Before we get into that, I just want to say, like, we might be in a worst case scenario where, like, they made these bans that were very much needed and the format somehow got worse because they didn't make enough bans. And, like, one of the guys, the only person who had a salient thought outside of maybe me and you, not hating on everybody else and just saying how obvious this choice was to one person in our episode, which I'll flag up here. Victor from Stockholm Legacy Report got it right, man. They should have gotten rid of Nadu. It was miserable. Eternal Durdles is proud to be sponsored by Moxfield. Moxfield is the best Magic the Gathering deck building website on the internet. You can create, share, and find decks from Commander to Legacy and even fan-supported formats like Pre-Modern and Old School. You can see all of our decks on our Moxfield. Follow the links below to stay tuned. I know you have played against the deck, and you were saying there was a scenario where the guy, like, top deck Nadu and then got Several Illusionist and then won the game, and I'm sure that took not an insubstantial amount of time to resolve. But for me, it was my opponent. I had out, like, 2 Dracos, Guild Pack, the whole deal. I was, like, all ready to go. I think it was at, like, 8 or 6 life or something like that. I'm just, like, doing my thing, smashing in. My opponent top decks Nadu, goes long, like, gets out the core Nomad, and just do. It had to be like 40 or 50 game actions taking place, right? While he drew cards and got lands out and then was able to target the thing and kept going. And the worst part of that, Phil, was cards like, drawing Force of Vigor and then being able to get rid of my Leyline. Okay, fine. No big deal. But you're putting so many cards in your hand that, like, Force of Vigor's free now. And then you're like, oh, also I have Endurance, and they can flash an Endurance, right? React to the death trigger, target it a couple times to get that going. And then the dude had out enough land after all of this to cast another Nadu and restart the whole process over again. So when his turn ended, it was literally like 12 guys on the board from nothing. Like, there was nothing on the board before this. 12 guys on the board and threatening to do the entire thing again on my turn. I just conceded because I couldn't watch it again. Like I said, I don't want to be I don't want to constantly nag and be a doomsayer on the format and how things are going, but this feels like it's going to be a long wait till December.
Yeah, I don't think that, like, Nadu is necessarily too powerful. Like, it's another thing that's part of a 2-card combo. It's obviously a
Splitter Twin.
I think the interesting thing is that they have an article up on the mothership where the first sentence is Nadu was a design mistake, and then decided to leave it legal in a format, which is very strange. Yeah. It's like, okay, if it's a mistake, you can cut it, but transgressive cards need a place to live, and that's the format that we exist in. So I guess, like, all that shit has to exist. I think that the thing that right now, Psychic Frog has all of the, like, eyeballs on it because it did before the ban, and now it does now. And I think it's going to just be the thing that collects all of the heat. But if we were to go into Eternal Weekend tomorrow, I think Nadu is actually, like, Nadu in some form, whether it's the regular Bant deck that doesn't sport the Cephalid Illusionist combo or Breakfast with Nadu, is actually going to be I think that will be the deck that wins Eternal Weekend.
Yeah.
I think that's like the density of
It's
what
hands
Nadu is
down
able to do.
extremely strong.
It's really strong. It can win out of
resilient,
nowhere.
yeah.
It's a very compact combo that, like, if you draw your combo piece of Nadu, it's just like a very good beater that is also insulated against removal. So like there's just no downside about it. It's in really valuable colors, being both blue making it pitchable and green for pitchable. And I just think that like the thing that struck me most as like the guy who's the perennial spokesperson for Sensei's Top is, if Sensei's Top was banned because of tournament logistics, then Nadu pulling out the 0, 1, and 2 counter card and then sliding cards and rectangles moving all over the place, and like, does it go into play? Does it not go into play? Like the fact that you have non-deterministic game actions for tournament logistics to, like, if I can't spin my top in response to that, then I don't understand how that reminds me legal. No, this is not saying, like, I don't think that the card is too powerful for Legacy. By Legacy standards, I think,
hard agree.
It can win on turn 2, right? Like you can if you're going full broke, you can win on turn 2. Typically, you're just going to win on turn 3 because you're going to turn 2 your Nado and then be insulated through removal, and then you're going to cast your combo card, and that's all well and good. It's not like the format is short on turn 2 and turn 3 kills if you want to play that sort of thing. This one just happens to also be a very good post mid-range deck, or move into, like, you can be a straight up combo deck with Cephalid Breakfast. You're an Urza Saga deck, so you're playing a pillar of the format, so you're already inherently playing one of the busted power outliers. So I think people should just keep an eye on the Nadu deck, because Michael Mapson won Buffalo Chicken Dip with Nadu, and that's the biggest tournament we have before Eternal Weekend, at least North American Eternal Weekend in November. So I would caution people to respect that deck, to respect that combo of cards, Nadu plus stuff, because it will show up, I think, in pretty large numbers, whether it's the fair version or the Cephalid Breakfast version. Breakfast has won back when you could play Staff of the Storyteller. It won in the hands of Brian Koval a couple of major Legacy tournaments ago, and I think it only got better. There are a bunch of different versions for it. It's extremely resilient. It's extremely redundant, and I expect to play against it a lot in Pittsburgh.
Be ready.
Be ready.
With that said, our normal kvetching aside, Phil, let's talk about Duskmourn. Now, I don't know how much Duskmourn content have you immersed yourself in. I've listened to the first 3 episodes of the stories. I watched the live thing at PAX West. Like, I'm almost all the way in. But where are you at?
I know none of the lore, but I've been watching all of the spoiler things and such. Yeah. Seeing the reference and story, how, the inspirations for each of the cards and the movies that they refer to and such.
Yeah. I'm hyped for that stuff, man. Like, this is my vibe. We have entered the season of Zac, as I like to say. I was born in May, but man, I am a fall child, man. I love Halloween. I love the weather getting a little bit cooler. I like to wear a hoodie every now and again. So I'm into this. This is to me the ultimate as far as Magic set is concerned. 80s horror. Come on, the nostalgia is so strong there. It's gonna be. I'm hyped for this set. I'm actually kind of looking forward to maybe even dipping my toe into Standard if I can find something fun and relevant events to play in my area, which is maybe going to be more of a struggle than it should be. Mm-hmm. But with that said, Phil, we should talk about the cards that are in this first week are cards that we've seen. We're recording this on Wednesday. Cards that we've seen that are kind of what's the word I'm looking for? They're outliers. We've seen these cards and they look at least interesting. And I think the first one we should start with then is Demonic Council. So let me just read Demonic Council off for you here. Demonic Council says, sorcery for 1 and a black. Search your library for a demon card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Delirium. If there are 4 or more card types among cards in your graveyard, instead search your library for any card and put it in your hand and shuffle. Phil, I just want to start with a Henry Ford quote. I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but if you think you have a demonic tutor in your hand, you're both right and wrong.
I don't know the quote. I'm an ignorant, uncultured.
The quote is actually, if you think you can, you're right. If you think you can't, you're right. But in this scenario is if you think you have a demonic tutor in your hand, you're correct. If you think you have a demonic tutor in your hand, you're correct.
Yeah, if as if Beseech the Mirror wasn't enough, like, man, the upgrades that combo is getting with these tutors is insane.
Yeah, this is very doable, and for only 2 mana, like, I'm sure. Look, I'm like, go check out Bryant Cook's channel right now. I'm sure he's raving about this card, right? Like, he's oh my god, they just gave us demonic tutor, because that's what this reads to me. Like, especially in a deck that's like, you're already playing cards like, any number of instants, right? You're playing sorceries, you're playing petals, fetch lands. Like, very easy to make this go off. So much of your deck just goes into your graveyard immediately. And I don't know. There's not a whole lot to say about this. It's demonic tutor.
It is just demonic tutor. It is going to function pretty much as demonic tutor, like, straight up. Delirium for the Storm deck is trivially easy.
Is it easier to get Delirium than it is to get, like, Hellbent? I almost feel like.
Well, Hellbent, you can get Hellbent because of Lion's Eye Diamond,
sure.
But, like, typically you need to pay. Like, back when they played Infernal Tutor, it's like, that's in Infernal Tutor, right?
Infernal
Tutor. Where you had you had to be Hellbent. Like that, you had to pair with LED. Where this one, you don't. Like, you can do the same. Sure, you can do the same trick, but you don't have to. And if the other trick too is, like, if you cast Demonic Council and then do the Infernal Tutor trick of LED discard your hand, it's almost guaranteed that you're going to have Delirium by doing so. Yeah. By the time it resolves. Right. So, like, it will function essentially as Infernal Tutor with the Lion's Eye Diamond trick, while also just being Demonic Tutor in all the times where you don't want to discard your hand. Yeah, either you cast enough of those types of cards that they're in your graveyard, or now they are in your graveyard, right? Like, it's just going to happen. I don't even know that there's much more we can say about this card. It's Demonic Tutor. Yeah, it's Demonic Tutor, and then there also, like, the one thing too that I'm not sure how deep people have gone so far on, like, just going to Scryfall and putting in Demon in the subtype search and then seeing what you could actually get on the front side, assuming you don't have Delirium. Now, I think the number of times where that happens, where you don't have Delirium, is so minimal to being like, it's never going to come up. Yeah. But in the fail safes where it does come up, there are a couple of reasonable demons that you could play as tutor targets that have some amount of value. The Yawgmoth demon. Yawgmoth demon. Yeah, it's a 6/6 with flying and trample, and if you don't sacrifice a artifact during your upkeep, you take 2 damage and it taps. I would get that immediately. Oh shit! Okay, well there you go. There you go, everybody. We finally made Demonic Console a playable card. That's crazy. We did it. I think the first demon that came to mind, and I know because I've lost to it a bunch in paper, that people may not realize is a demon, is Chaos Defiler. I know people are usually play that only in your painter decks where you're swapping it in and out, but the fact that you could tutor for a removal spell in it being and also it's an artifact creature, so, like, later on it becomes delirious. It helps you with Delirium if it's in your yard. I don't think we're ever going to get to the space where we need to do something like that, but that is a space. I thought you were going to say Grizzlebrand, since it's a demon that you've lost to a lot of times. It's like, okay, yeah, I guess you can go get Grizzlebrand. Yeah, you could just Grizzlebrand yourself. Yeah, why not? Do it. Otherwise, like, there isn't anything else. I mean, there might be some other demons that are playable. I mean, I don't know off the top of my head which ones they would be in terms of, like, what sees what, like, regarding what sees play now, like, without any other help. Like, is there anything else? I don't think so. I just know that I've had a Chaos Defiler against me recently, so, like, it's top of mind for me. But there's probably something else in that space too that, maybe is, I'm sure this will be a card in Standard that, like, goes and gets a good demon from Standard. Maybe. Oh yeah. I mean, I imagine that this is also going to be a Modern powerhouse as well, just because getting Delirium in that format is also not crazy, because literally everybody's on Mishra's Bauble and it's not difficult at all. All right, so the next one we have is Kato, Bane of Nightmares. Kato, Bane of Nightmares is a 4-mana planeswalker that is a blue and a black, but it has ninjutsu, making it a 3-mana planeswalker if you ninjutsu it out.
ninjutsu, bring back an unblocked attacker to your hand and put this card into play. Tapped and attacking, which is a weird thing to do for a planeswalker, but when it's your turn, he is a 3/4 ninja that has hexproof. And then his abilities are +1. You get an emblem with all ninjas get your ninjas get +1/+1, or 0. Surveil 2. Draw a card for each opponent who lost life this turn, or -2. Tap target creature, put 2 stun counters on it, and this starts off with a 4 loyalty. Man, do you feel the feels I feel, and just wish that like Baleful Strix was a playable card in this format? Because this card like just would love a Baleful Strix.
I think like if you're already in the space for something like this, then just play your Baleful Strix. Yes, you're gonna get clipped by Bowmaster, and yes, that'll suck shit. But there's no situation where Bowmaster existing in the format isn't always going to suck shit. So like, okay, rather than like if you want to do this cool, necessarily powerful thing, you're not going to run into the suck shit experience 100% of the time, only a good chunk of the time. And so if it's only a good chunk of the time, and then the times where it's not, you get to do this super sweet thing that's actually pretty powerful, then yeah, give it a go. Why not? I mean,
it also bounces your Orcish Bowmaster back to your hand so that you can recast your Orcish Bowmaster if your opponent's not paying attention.
Yeah, I mean, I like the combination between Baleful Strix and Orcish Bowmaster and your 2 slot to be able to put this out on 3. Yeah. That means that you're tapping out, so you're probably going to want to be in some form of the Days Wasteland shell, maybe, or if you're just going to be on the Ninja pocket, like I could see that also. That's also just like helping the Ninjas deck. Now, if you're playing the Ninjas deck, you are obviously like voluntarily handicapping yourself. You're like looking to have a good time, which is totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I cast Terminus. Like
we're all looking to have a good time, right?
We all appreciate that stuff. So I think that the cool thing too about this is, at least in the Ninja deck, you can do cool stuff, because when this thing is a creature, you can put it in, and then like you can attack ninjutsu, or like not the same turn that you put it in, but like when you untap and you have this in play, you can activate it, attack ninjutsu this back again, and then cast and then activate the ability a second time in the same turn, because you have recast it and put it back into play. So there's something pretty cool about that seems pretty sweet. Also, the essentially like getting to use the minus to stun a couple of creatures, or stun a creature, and then like pick this back up with your ninjutsu effects. So like you don't necessarily have to like spend time ticking up. You can just rebuy this and then put it back in, stun another creature, and then that is going to continuously be able, like having that kind of recursive removal, particularly against things where sometimes Fatal Push isn't good enough. So being able to put this into play, tap down their thick creature, it's stuck for 2 turns. They put in something else, you replay this, you tap it down, it's stuck for 2 turns. Like you're just going to be able to lock down a board pretty effectively while you're getting in for big beats and big card advantage.
This Planeswalker actually, we haven't talked about this in years, but like actually fulfills the role that most Planeswalkers used to fulfill, that they need to determine whether or not they were good, right? It draws cards, it protects itself, right? And it does that with the tap ability, right? And then the fact that it like having multiple of these like plays into its ability is kind of excellent. You're able to just be like, okay, like I'll start, I'll just continue trading these 2, over and over and over again to get tempo out of you. Not to mention the fact that you can start growing them as well, which is like its own thing. You get to a point where you're tapping down a guy, and then you throw the other one out and you give it +1/+1, and then the next turn you swing in with a 5/4, or a 5/6, and then you bounce it back to your hand. It's gonna. This is a card I think that is a sleeper in the set. People are obviously a little hype on it now because it's a Planeswalker. It's Kato. He's a well-known character. It's the only Planeswalker in the set, apparently. But I think that this card's gonna be better than I think a lot of people are gonna give it credit for, if we can find a home for it. It's not like Blue-Black is having trouble finding slots to fill at this point.
Yeah, Blue-Black doesn't need the help right now, but I do think that the part of this card that is tough to analyze outside of actual play, like actually testing it out, is how good I think for the Ninjas deck this is, because of that -2. Something that the Ninja deck often has to circumvent because there isn't space is good removal to make sure that your creatures can get through. And so you have to play like these very subpar cards just to be just for evasion, so you can get in. And this also being blue, so it's pitchable to all this stuff. But I think that this having recursive removal, like removal over and over again while you're accruing value while that's happening, I think is actually the highlight of this card for that deck. If this card sees play in Legacy, I think it's going to only really be in that ninjutsu deck, because the +1, if you're playing this card and putting it in on 3, there's just more powerful things to be doing in blue-black on 3, and that is never actually casting a 3-drop, right? You're just going to be on Murktide and Psychic Frog, so you never actually need to get here. So it's like, if this shows up, I think it shows up in the Ninjas deck. I think this is a huge upgrade for the Ninjas deck, which is, tier 2-5 right now. Maybe it pushes this up. It becomes a stronger deck, given if the tapping creatures part is effective, like if you're actually playing against interactive decks and not combo decks, that this being able to surveil 2 and then draw a card for if you've gotten in, which is the whole function of what your deck is trying to do, or being able to control a stalled board by embleming every turn while going up, or being able to have continuous recursive removal over and over that then can get picked up and reset. I think the removal is really the biggest part, because I think that was a bottleneck for ninjas, and being able to have this both be a ninja that is accruing value while also being a removal spell that is recursive in its removal is a huge upgrade for what the deck was lacking. Because now, instead of playing your fucking murderous cuts or whatever that suck shit in that deck, but you need to have it, now you just get to play this instead. It's another thing that can continuously ninjutsu you stuff, and then it's another thing that can tap down things so you can continuously get in for attacks. And I think that's a huge upgrade.
Yeah.
We love upgrades for tier 2, 5 decks, Zach. We love that.
I mean, of course we do. I'm playing like blue, white, red control with back to the basics right now, so I need some kind of
Back to the
upgrade.
basics.
Back to the basics.
Back to the basics.
Not back to basics. Back to the basics. That's where we're going.
Yo, where's the Back to the Future reference in this set? Is that a horror film?
It is. Consider that only if you consider having to date your mother a horror film.
Dude, it's pretty scary. The stuff in the photo, like he sees his family fading away in the photo. That's pretty horrific.
A buddy of mine just watched Back to the Future, and he was texting because he's having his kid watch it, and he was like, the funniest line in that movie is actually when the grandpa, like his grandfather, hits him with the car at the beginning of the movie, which sort of kicks off the movie as he goes into 1955, and the grandpa yells to the grandma, he's like, I hit another one of those kids in the driveway. Like, how many kids are you hitting in the driveway, dude? How many of these kids are in your driveway that you've hit that many times?
Doesn't that scare you? That's a horror movie.
That's ridiculous. All right. Scary. Finally, we have Split Up. Split Up is 2 white and 1 colorless. It's a sorcery. It says choose one. Destroy all tapped creatures. Or destroy all untapped creatures. Phil, are you into this card?
I mean, a 3-mana Wrath isn't the worst, and I think having it's not always going to be good, right? It's conditional. You have to choose one or the other. Sometimes if your opponent attacks and then plays something else, they can play around Split Up. But I mean, being a 3-mana Wrath is reasonable to look at as one of the cheaper versions of this effect we've ever seen. Yeah. We are in the space of if Nadu is going to be around, and Nadu is a pretty go wide-ish deck, that having a cheaper Wrath is important. I think untapped. The play pattern where I'm like, this is probably not going to be quite good enough, or it'll show up as your 90 or 91st card as opposed to making your 75, is the way that it just doesn't line up quite well against Urza Saga, because they get to instant speed a construct, make another construct, and then attack with the construct that's not summoning 6. They're always going to have one tapped and one untapped, and you're dead by the time you would get to sweep up both. So
that's not necessarily true, but you're still taking a butt ton of damage, because if they're using Lava Spur Boots, they're both tapped, but you're dead.
You're dead. Yeah. The alternative is you either don't catch them or they're dead. So it's a card that I'm like, well, this is a super cheap effect. We definitely have to talk about it. It's definitely somewhere you should probably have some if you're in the control player space to reach for in the event that it becomes good at some point, because it is on the cheaper end. And being able to play a Wrath, I get that it can be countered where Supreme Verdict can't.
I was going to say Supreme Verdict, I think, is still the better card here, especially with the Nadu deck drawing 12 counter spells. in the time it takes to do everything. Like the
Totally.
only thing you can do is reset the board. And who cares about playing around days by having a card that costs 1 less when your spell can't be countered anyhow, right?
It's also cute that you think that like you get to play a
You get to
Supreme
turn
Verdict
4.
against the Nadu deck and you're not just already dead. Like
Yeah, this is
nice,
also true.
nice Supreme Verdict. I have 14 cards in my hand.
Mhm.
That is also
For sure.
not realistic. I don't think so. If Split Up shows up, it's just because it's a good effect on the cheapest version of it that we've seen. But like, it's not going to pop any eyeballs. It's not making any new archetypes. It's not going to replace Terminus. Where
It's certainly not going to replace
valuable.
Wrath of the Skies. I don't think
It's not going to replace Wrath of the Skies in those spots,
which
so,
is competing for that same area, especially if you want to be a little energy efficient and play tune a narrative.
Tune the narrative, yeah. So Split Up, good competitive card. We'll see play in the younger formats for sure. Legacy is probably just out of reach, but good effect, good card. Probably not quite playable.
I want to talk about one more card, just because this card's fun, and I think it's neat that it exists, and I'm sure it's triggered a ton of people that are friends of the pod. Doomsday Excruciator is a 6-mana 6/6 flying demon for 6 black mana. It says flying. When Doomsday Excruciator enters the battlefield, if it was cast, each player exiles all but the bottom 6 cards of their library face down. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card. This is not Doomsday.
It is not Doomsday.
It is not Doomsday. It's not even doing even because it's making you draw a card, all that other stuff. But you don't get to pick those 6 cards, which I think is the thing that, like, come on. Like, if you were a Doomsday player, maybe you would think about playing this if it did Doomsday on top of this. But, like, come on.
It's trying to be Magus of the Doomsday, and then it doesn't even Doomsday?
Come on.
What has the world come to, Zach? So also, speaking of going back to Demonic Console?
Demonic Console. Yeah.
Demonic Console.
Council?
So, Council? So, I think it's Council, right? Council.
S-E-L.
Council.
S-E-L.
Yeah, Council. Okay, so Demonic Council. So, when I was at the local after that card was spoiled, and I was talking with somebody and I was like, yeah, this is the Demonic Console is just going to make, if Epic Storm isn't already the best combo deck, that isn't like Nadu, then it has to be the best combo deck once it gets Demonic Console, right? Like there's just no other way. And then my opponent for the round, who I was talking to, his name's Adam. He's a good dude. And he was like, he listened to the pod, shout out. And then he was like, what about Doomsday? Don't you think that it would be good in Doomsday? And I was like, oh yeah, it probably could be, because you do want more copies of Doomsday, and just having Demonic Tutor in your deck rather than any of the other tutors where you have to like circumvent stuff that Doomsday doesn't want to do is probably not good. And so I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Let's inquire about that right now. And then I peered across the room to Eric Radikowski, who is also
friend of the pod.
So
just recently got married. Congratulations, Eric.
Congratulations on your marriage. And I said, hey man, are you going to play that? And he's like, why would we do that?
I don't need that.
He was like, delirium, or how are we doing that? How is that happening, Phil? And then he gave me a stern look. He looked me dead in the eyes. And he was like, why would we ever do that? You absolutely bumbling Neanderthal. And I was like, well, I guess it means that Epic Storm is going to be the deck that uses it and be the best combo deck. I guess that's where.
Or they have to build the deck differently and throw in Urza's Baubles and all that stuff.
Yeah,
which I feel like
you hear that? Maybe there's innovation to be had. I
feel like with Vexing Bauble around, that's kind of a bad plan. Like play your deck into Vexing Bauble.
Wow.
Oh, now we lose Vexing Bauble. Amazing.
Yeah.
All right. Well.
Yeah. So we give the thumbs down to Doomsday Excruciator for trying to be Magus of the Doomsday and not Doomsdaying.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's what happens when you make a pact with a demon. They give you a bad version of the card they're named after.
Also, for anybody who's unaware, because I did not know, but we'll be at LobsterCon, and I plan. Yes. I have a ton of cards in my collection that I just haven't. We over the years we collect a lot of cards. Am I right? And
we do.
I will be offloading a bunch of my collection that I haven't touched in a very long time, and I have Thassa's Oracles. Did you know that Thassa's Oracle apparently is a very expensive Magic card?
It's expensive because it's like a win con in every CEDH deck now.
Totally. I mean, I get that it's a win con and everything, but I didn't know that a rare was going to be like, as expensive as it is. It's like $20-some odd or some shit. Yeah. I don't know. But like, what? What?
Yeah.
Since when? Since how? I don't know. Get that shit out of my collection. Give me those dollars.
Yep.
And I hope that everybody else who also is never going to cast a Thassa's Oracle, if you have them, pull them out and do the same.
folks, if you're going to, if you're going to DC, I'm going to be in DC. I think that's October 4th or something. But we'll definitely be at Eternal Weekend for sure. And LobsterCon, we're going to LobsterCon. See us. We have stickers, and I want to give out stickers to people. So we've got. I made a ton of stickers. Don't make me look like a jerk by just carrying around stickers and not handing them out to people. So we want to make sure that happens. We'll of course be at Vegas. We have a stacked Q4. If you are into the podcast and you want to help support us, support those travels, we are trying to get to Prague. I would like to make sure that Phil, myself, and not being paid for the podcast, my wife as well, are going to come to Prague. That's our hope. So if you're down to see what it's like when we head to Europe and play in a European Eternal Weekend as well, any amount that you can do to support us on Patreon helps. And of course, it helps, just allow us to devote more time to the show. You guys, I'm sure, saw the episode with Reduke that just happened. That was our biggest episode ever. That was amazing. And a lot of that is due to the support that our Patreon supporters have been able to offer us and allow us to spend a little bit more time making the show a little bit better for everybody. And on top of that, just being able to make cooler episodes. Big thanks to everybody. So we had just some quick upkeep on all that too. So a year ago, almost, we had an episode with Joe Cherries. That was our biggest episode ever at 5.6 thousand people watched. Then we had that 25 other Legacy players check out 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. 25 Legacy players talk about the Banlist. That hit 8,000. Our biggest episode ever. Took a year. The next week, we're at 14,000 with the Reduke episode. I'm looking forward to trying to get more episodes like that where we talk to some of the bigger names of the community, and that like I said, that support goes a long way to legitimizing us and to making us to make us out to be people who people want to talk to the format about. So once again, I have to thank everybody for their support on that. Phil?
Yeah, I also want to thank I want to thank Zach for your support on that. It was our biggest episode ever. It was a huge deal. I thought it spoke for itself.
Yeah. No, you're right. Anyhow, everybody, thanks for watching, and we will catch you again next week. We'll have some reactions to some more Duskmourn spoilers. Maybe we'll have the set review. I don't know when this thing fully drops. We'll talk
Zach,
about the format as well.
Quick jump in before we sign off.
Okay,
you're the 80s horror movie expert.
Okay, yeah.
You're the expert, Zach, in the Magic Legacy space.
Sure.
You have always been, not just because of the set. Even before this, everybody knew you as the 80s horror go-to. Okay.
Sure. Agreed. I have the Elvira t-shirts, the Reanimator t-shirts. You have
them all. And we all knew it. We all know it now. We all know it even more so now.
Sure.
I need to know. Is there any 80s horror movie that I'm unaware of that happens to have a demented dreidel in it that might show up on a Magic card with an effect?
No, what would be funny though is if the Hellraiser cube they did as a Sensei's Divining Top.
Ooh.
Right?
Ooh. Ooh.
That would be good, right?
Do you think I could get is there going to be a Magus?
That's a perfect secret layer.
In on theme with the Doomsday Excruciator, do you think that there's going to be a Magus of the Sensei's Top that doesn't do what Sensei's Top does?
Oh, that'd be so rude.
Okay. Yeah. Peace, everybody. We're out.
Later. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to this channel and do your part to help sustain the Legacy content ecosystem. Just subscribing to this channel goes a long way to reminding YouTube that people love and support this format. Now, if you really want to go the extra mile, you should think about supporting us through Patreon. Both the links for subscription and Patreon are right here. And if you're listening on an audio format, you can go to patreon.com/eternaldurdles. Thanks so much for watching.